Bella Vista Community Television presents Bella Vista and Beyond. Today our hosts are Bambi Crozier and Tricia Ayers, and we will be talking about probate and trust solutions and Canopy, Northwest Arkansas, assisting refugees. And now to the studio for our program.
Hi, welcome to Bella Vista and Beyond. My name is Bambi, and today I want to talk about life changes. We experience a lot of life changes. In fact, the last probably 12 to 18 months, you've likely experienced a lot of life changes. And as we go through those, we're usually pretty emotional. Can't maybe logically think about what's happening in the moment. So today, my guest, Roger Lacy, is with Arkansas Trust and Probate Solutions, and he's also a realtor with Weichert, Griffin. And he's going to talk about compassionate transitions when it comes to real estate. He handles real estate a little bit different. I'm excited to introduce him to you today. Hi, Roger. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Bambi. I'm really pleased to be here.
Yeah, me too. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I started in, I'm an Army brat. Let's get started with that. And I lived almost everywhere, overseas and the like. And I just happened to graduate from high school in Fort Smith, Northside. Went to Arkansas Tech University, got a BA degree there. Went on active duty in the Army for 7 years and got out as a captain and started a couple of different things. Private investigator, and bumped into sales and started selling with AT&T Yellow Pages for 21 years. During that time, I got a master's in business administration, and then after retirement, I had one of my clients talk me into getting into real estate in 2008. Terrible year to get started, but I learned a lot and managed to survive through that. During that time at church, at work, I was a little bit frustrated because it's always seemed like everything was about the house. And at church, I went through a course called Servant Leadership, and it resonated very highly with me. And so it resonated with me, and so I have adopted my servant leadership skill set and continue to develop that the skill set that Jesus Christ taught, used, and with his disciples and everybody that he went. And so I go in with a set mindset of how can I help someone, and through a definite life change. And then I bumped into an opportunity to get into the probate sector of business, and I continue to use that as the start of where I work with families going through a very turbulent time in their life.
Fantastic. Well, so you mentioned probate, so tell me exactly what is probate?
Probate is a court process that is implemented to distribute the assets of an estate from someone who has died. Mm-hmm. Typically, you've got three ways of looking at that. Someone who has a trust usually does not have to go through probate because everything in the trust is designated on what's going to happen at the time of death. There's a will, and sometimes the will does not need to go through the court to decide how the assets and the wealth of the individual are distributed. But sometimes, and a lot of times, people don't update their will, and so there's questions about what is to happen with that. And that's when it goes into court and goes into probate court. Then there's also people who die without a will. If they die intestate, then typically the heirs or somebody, one of the family members, file with the court as the personal representative in the state of Arkansas, and they become essentially the executor of the estate and follow the thing. The cool part about a trust is that, and will, is it's an attempt for the individual to designate what happens with the assets. What happens in probate is if there's questions or challenges from the heirs, and then the court decides what happens with the assets of the deceased. And they determine how that what will happen with that according to Arkansas statutes. So the best insurance to stay out of probate is to make sure that you have a will, and make sure that your children are aware of the will, that the will is updated, and or more important is have a trust. And I have a lot of attorneys that I work with to refer people to trust to keep their families out of court and a probate court.
Yes, I hear a lot of people that go through probate, and it can be a long process.
It's can be anywhere between 3 months, 4 months, or it could be a year, depending upon the size of the estate and some of the intricacies that are involved, and notification of any possible creditors to the estate that need to be paid. And that's kind of the whole process for that. So when someone dies and it looks like there's not a trust that's involved, or if there's a will that's being involved, and attorneys, there's a process that people should go through to make sure that they're going in the right direction to dispose of the assets or to bring resolution. First thing is, the family should gather up all of the important documents of the trusts, the wills, the insurance policies, the stock bonds, the certificates, and all of the other financial stuff. That's very important to get those isolated and be able to hang on to those and bring those and identify those assets to the court. Then I would suggest that they consult with an attorney. An attorney is a guy that will interface with the court and make sure that all of the documentation, letters of testamentary, and all of the processes are done in order for the family to go through and dispose of or divide the assets. That time frame that I mentioned, 4 months to a year, we have to give potential creditors an opportunity to make their claim and be able to get paid off. During all of that time, an inventory of the assets, whether it's the stuff, the household possessions, the automobile, the real estate that's involved in the thing, all of that needs to be inventoried so that the court can see what the values of that. And in those, and I have people in my I have people that'll help with that. I have estate sellers that will help do the inventory and develop that. And then it's a matter of paying the bills as you go along during this process. If there's a mortgage on the house, you have to decide whether or not you're going to pay the mortgage on the house, or if there's no mortgage on the house, make sure that the insurance is paid, whether the insurance is paid, taxes paid, so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, there's a distribution of the assets after you sell the personal property and or the real estate, if that's with the way we're going. And so there's a lot going on there that is really time consuming. And what I have adopted my real estate business to do is to save the executor time and save the executor the frustration of being a resource for them to complete the process and to maximize or use my talents in the real estate side to maximize the estate so that it can fund the maximum possible for the heirs to divide the proceeds.
I love that. And there's a lot I want to unpack in there. But you did bring today one of your brochures for Arkansas Trust and Probate Solutions. And I love inside here, it does talk about that. So, you know, where do you start? You say, here's where you start. Pull together these documents.
That's right.
Pull this information together. And there's a whole list of things that they can do that's inside this brochure where they can start, right?
That's right.
And then on the back, I love where you say, I've got a network. I've got a network of people where I can help you. I'm going through the emotion of that change, right? I'm the daughter and my mom's passed, and I'm going through the emotion of that. We landed in probate because either she didn't have a will or I couldn't find it.
Right.
And you're connected with people. I'm not out here having to find all these people to do what I need to do. And I can't probably think about it anyway. My mind's in 1,000 different places. So that's where you can come in and really help in that situation. Or even if my mom did have a trust and then the trustee, you're saying, could also utilize your services because you're very well connected in those areas.
There's a lot to unpack there also, because I can help after the probate is completed. I've got financial planners. I've got people that can help with those resources. There's a lot of things that you can do as you go through that. Even the real estate itself doesn't necessarily have to be sold to another person, and it just really kind of depends on the condition of the property. And I have about 6 different things, from a quick sale. I have investors that will take a property no matter what the condition is, and will close in 10 days as long as the title is cleared on it. And I also have opportunities for someone to sell the property within the estate and do a owner financing, which would build the estate's value with the interest payment on that. So there's everything in between that can be done for the estate as you move along.
I love that. So if I'm the child left, my mom's passed, I'd have the option to, if the property's just in disarray and I don't want to take the time, you could flip it quickly for me to an investor.
Yes.
You could tell me what to repair maybe, and then we could sell it via the traditional path to a potential homeowner.
A lot of people don't see that. A lot of people will see repairs as being a big deal. What I have done on a number of occasions is walk through the house and say, you know, if you fix the toilet over there, if you fix the window over here, it will pass an FHA inspection. Whereas many people will sit there and go, let's just sell it for whatever we can get it for. And you can get anywhere between $30,000 to $50,000 more by some minor repairs to get it get it so that a home buyer will buy it. There's a lot of people that will buy a home with linoleum floors and Formica tops on it because they don't have to, in this market, because they don't have to pay $140 a square foot for it. Those probate properties that will pass FHA and VA maintenance standards will be a great boon to the family.
Absolutely, and building a new house today is unaffordable with the cost of lumber.
It's
what's going on.
It's just one of those things where it's a time that we're in right now.
Yep.
And it's very confusing, and I'm here to help those families to make a decision based upon what is important to them. Because if you're going to hold a mortgage on it and to sell it to somebody that way, you're building the asset value of that estate in the trust or outside of the probate.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and then the third option, which I had never considered before, but you said that as the daughter, I can now turn this property into an investment by becoming the banker and collecting interest on top of the mortgage payment. Is that accurate?
You sell the property and hold the mortgage. You do financing, owner financing. That is one way. You'd have to get all of these steps cleared, and that's why the attorney is very important in this process to make sure that we get that done. But owner financing of those homes is certainly something. And the cool part about owner financing is you don't have to worry about an appraisal, and you have to qualify the buyer and make sure that you have. It's not like renting. It is you hold the mortgage. You don't have any maintenance costs involved with it, and you can't do it if there's a mortgage on the property now. The mortgage on the property has to be paid off to do that.
Sure, sure. Well, fantastic. So tell me a little bit, how do you want people to connect with you if they have questions?
You can look at our website that is online. It's pretty much just a credibility website. It has all of my contact information. I'm doing this in conjunction with another realtor up here in Benton County, Russ Kidwell. You can go to www.arprobatesolutions.com, or we have another one is artps.com, artps.com. That's for Arkansas Trust and Probate Solutions. We do provide those liquidation services for trusts as well as in probate, because they're just as needed as you go. And we're talented. We both have been doing this for he's been doing it for 4 years, I've been doing this for 7 years, and I'm really find it as an expression of my inner self and finding a way to express my servant leadership for families. And I start my program with what's important to you about this whole process. So I want to make sure I've matched the objectives of the family to what their intent is after the probate is closed.
Fantastic. And prior to coming on today, you and I talked a little bit, and you shared a couple of examples of experiences you've had and people that you'd helped. Are there any of those that you'd be interested in sharing with us today?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have in process right now in Fayetteville. Have an heir that did not do the probate when his father died, and his mother died years ago. And it turns out that the house was built in 1974, but the house was built where they thought the property line was, over there about 20 yards away from a barbed wire fence. As it turns out, about 1/4 of the house was built over the property line, and so I have to go negotiate that, and this has taken some time in order to negotiate a property line move with the adjacent landowner. In this case, it was the University of Arkansas. And we managed that. You ever try to deal with the University of Arkansas? Wow, it's time consuming and can be frustrating. But I found the right people to deal with on that. Another example is I walked into a house, and I've already given an example of identifying minor repairs for something that people thought that it was the house was toast. And I said, well, you know, if we can do this and repair this. They were expecting something in the neighborhood of around $90,000 for the house, and I managed to get $150,000 for it. So it's a matter of using my expertise in repairs, understanding what repairs cost, and moving forward with that. And the kicker on that is right now. Sometimes the cost of repairs have gone up because the price of lumber has gone up, and everything in that has gone up. So we really have to start taking a look of what that shape is as we move forward with closing out the probate in a happy manner.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate you joining us today, and thank you guys for joining. We're going to go to a quick break, and we'll have Tricia right back with you.
We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Here is our host, Tricia.
I am so excited to bring you my next guest. There are a few organizations that over the last 3 years I have tried to keep up with and invite them to come back to educate and continue their progress, to tell us what's going on in Northwest Arkansas. And one of my guests today is that very organization. I'd like to introduce you to Mariah Green, who is the volunteer coordinator for Canopy, Northwest Arkansas. Mariah, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining. And as I said, you're one of those organizations that it's so important for us to get more education out to the whole process and what you do in the community. Could you explain to us what Canopy Northwest Arkansas is to start off with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Canopy Northwest Arkansas is a refugee resettlement agency. Essentially how we started was a group of Northwest Arkansas residents who gathered together to help welcome and equip refugees to build new lives.
And where do the refugees come from?
Yeah.
Where are you accepting refugees from at the moment?
Absolutely. So we know that the refugee crisis is worldwide, but predominantly the demographics that we resettle are the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which is Congolese, Rwanda, the Middle East, so we have Iraq, Afghanistan, and then also South and Central America. So looking at Guatemala, Colombia, and actually we're getting an increase in the Burmese community. So we're having some like Karen and Karenni folk join us.
Could you explain to us a little bit, and I always ask this question because I think educating people on how long and what a lengthy process this is. People just don't turn up at a border somewhere and go, I would like to come to Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah.
It's a very, very lengthy process.
Yeah.
Could you go into that a little bit?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, I agree with you. The process of getting refugee status is very in-depth, and it's very vigorous. And so essentially what happens is you have a person or a household who has a well-founded fear of persecution. It's based on their identity. What they then have to do is then prove to the United Nations or the UN that they are being persecuted for one of 5 qualifiers. Once that happens, they then begin the refugee-like process to be considered, or we call it classified, as refugees. That application process takes about 2 years, but during that time, there's a myriad of vetting, screening, background checks. Those are health. Those are, what did you do when you were 15 years old? Like, the United States, we're a superpower. We want to know who's coming into our country. During that time, 3 things can happen. Someone can say, you know what? Things have slowed down where I live. I think it's safe to stay there. They're going to turn back home. That's the optimal option. We want people to be safe wherever they call home. Another thing that can happen is people will then flee. And when they flee, they typically go to a refugee camp, typically, but not always, at a bordering country. That camp is just kind of what it sounds like. It's supposed to be a temporary place, but it's not often temporary. On average, refugees can stay in refugee camps for about 20 years, but then as little as 6 months. It's absurd. We have clients who have started churches, built families, all in that camp, and that camp is really just like a waiting area for them to be able to resettle. But honestly, less than 5% of refugees actually get to resettle. And so that's the process that we spend a lot of time on. And resettling is just, again, going to the UN, getting that classification, and then the UN will then decide where they resettled. We're going to focus on the United States. The United States has the Big 9, and so those are the large resettlement agencies. They're kind of way more popular than Canopy, Catholic Charities, CORE, World Relief. We kind of know those names. We've seen those commercials. And then they have smaller agencies like us that subcontract through them. And so what that looks like is a client will, the Big 9, they'll decide which Big 9 they'll go to. For us, they'll go through the Lutheran Immigration Refugee Services, and then they'll come to us. And the way that we decide whether or not clients will come to Arkansas or Texas or wherever is based on, one, numbers, because we're federally funded, right? And so how many refugees are we able to take in this fiscal year? But then also demographic. And so that's why we have the populations that we have in Northwest Arkansas, because we've cultivated this very robust, Congolese community, Central and South America community, so that sort of thing.
And I know we were talking earlier about that I'm originally from the UK, and the immigration process that I went through to what your families are going through is very different.
It's very different.
And the website is wonderful that you have, canopynwa.org.
Yeah.
Everybody should go there. There's an infographic on there that kind of step-by-steps the process. Many steps, many steps, but one that made me somewhat laugh is the first step of the first process is produce documents.
Yeah.
How do you even have documents with you maybe if you are fleeing from persecution?
Yeah. You don't. So typically, if you're leaving someplace and you're fleeing, you just take what's on your body, your prized possessions, typically your family. And so our clients don't come here with a ton of different things. They actually typically come with whatever clothes they're wearing. I've seen some clients come with a backpack. I've seen others not. But yes, so we actually, on this side of things, we only have jurisdiction in the States, but we help our clients start the paperwork to get their families to come across. And so, no, it's not, at the neighborhood Walmart or at the courthouse. Again, in that process of fleeing for their lives, they then have to prove to the United Nations that they are refugees, and the United Nations will help them start the application process, which is vigorous. It really is vigorous.
Yes, it went on and on and on, the different steps. Another thing that we were briefly talking about that I think people don't realize or don't take into consideration sometimes, that everybody who's fleeing is not a poor, uneducated person.
Yeah.
There are people that are very educated, professional people who are fleeing for their lives.
Yeah.
So how do you help that person to integrate once they're in our community? Because there must be language barriers and certification and all that kind of thing. How do you help a family once they get here?
Yeah. Well, before I answer that question, if you
Yes.
don't mind,
No,
I
please.
actually love how you started it with, like, there's narratives
Yes.
that are around people of all types, not just refugees, not just immigrants, but there's narratives that we take and we make them truths, even if we haven't met people before, right? And so, yeah, one of those narratives that we talked about is that, you know, refugees are poor and malnourished and, you know, stealing, and that's not always the case. You know, one of the identifiers that can classify you as a refugee is political, getting persecuted because of your political opinion, you know. And so sometimes the corruption that's in these governments and in these nations are actually exploiting people that actually have great wealth, right? And so what we do first is not try to Google search, you know, refugee crisis in insert place, and now I know everything. We try to get to know our clients and learn from them without prying, but learn from them their experiences. Based upon that, then we go through the process of helping them integrate. So Canopy, I like to say we focus more on the economic side of integration. So they come here and they don't have a social security number. In the United States, we all know you literally don't exist without a social security number. You can't get medical care, you know, you can't get a driver's license, you can't get a job, you can't get a home, you can't do anything without that. So we help them first with that, and then we work and we put them into Job Club so that they know the culture of getting a job, the process of getting a job, also the process of keeping one, because that's important. We also pair them up with our local ESL providers. So we work with Ozark Literacy Council. We've recently started working with Dogwood Council, which is in Salem Springs, and the Fayetteville Adult Education, just because we understand that language really does help to just overcome barriers, right? Cultural barriers that are there, and economically will help them in the long run. And then also we have the social side, and that is really where my bread and butter is. I work with volunteers. Canopy, I mean, we started out with one person in 2016 on our staff. When I joined last year, it was 9 people, and we're constantly growing. But 9 to 12 people cannot sustain numerous households of people fleeing for their lives, right? And so we started with our community, and we continue to sustain because of our community. And so our community helps with that social integration piece. We kind of made a joke before of like, hey, if I'm coming into a new culture, do I know what Memorial Day is? Do I know that I can't run at the bank on Memorial Day, that certain places aren't open? And so you have community guides, your first friends, which we call co-sponsors, that come alongside and help you with the social integration. What's online banking and why do we need it? How do I get from point A to point B without needing other people and being dependent? Public transportation. You know, what are some nuances and quirks about Northwest Arkansas that if I'm not a native, I wouldn't know? And so that's really the exciting part for me about integration is it's a collective effort. Everyone gets a chance, to be involved in this.
And you're the volunteer coordinator.
That's me.
So how do you recruit volunteers? What are they volunteering for?
Absolutely.
What is your position there?
Yeah. So yes, as a volunteer coordinator, my primary role is to do outreach. So I have these wonderful experiences like what I'm doing right now, getting in front of as many audiences as possible and saying, this is a humanitarian effort and there's something that everyone can do. And so that's what I do. I mean, we work with the university, we work with just corporate, we work with grassroots organizations, we work with families. I mean, we work with everyone. We also utilize, because I'm a millennial, digital communication. So social media, our website, just really helping people to understand, educate, and then understand how they can get involved. We do have a lot of different opportunities, and as the world opens up again, we're opening up again. So if you're looking for a no contact opportunity, we have our welcome kits. Really what you do is you go onto our website and you can see a list of things that clients will need. Mm-hmm. You go to Walmart, you get a little $3 kit and you fill it with new things. So whether it's a bedroom kit, or toiletry kit.
Right.
Those are different ways that you can help. We also have people who say, you know what, I don't have, I have a 9 to 5. I don't have a ton of time, but every now and then, I can help with transportation or childcare while a client is, going to English classes or going to job club. That's a way to help. We have our co-sponsors. That's a 6-month commitment to that social integration side of things.
Okay.
And so they can help in a bunch of different ways, but mainly we have mentors who say for 6 months, I'm going to walk closely with, an individual or a family, and I'm going to help them understand the culture of Northwest Arkansas while also really amplifying and encouraging their culture and them integrating and making this place home, right?
So there's just many ways.
So many ways. We have corporate sponsorships to fund households. We have so many ways. You alluded to it earlier, but our website is the best place to go. And then also a personal email or phone call to me, because I like to know, my audience and say, okay, if you're interested in this, if you're passionate in this, then let's plug you in here. Because like I said, resettlement is a collective effort.
I know one thing that touched my heart and I was excited about, and we spoke a little earlier about, because my field is seniors and senior health care, and I go a lot to different facilities and in-home health care companies, and the cry right now, and one that has been for quite a while, is we have a lack of CNAs. We have a lack of direct care people in our community, and that's one thing that your organization tries to help people connect with, becoming CNAs. So that was so exciting, because I cannot tell you the amount of time that people stand up in their business and go, we don't have enough CNAs to help the clients that we have. So that is so exciting. So it's, people are not taking jobs away from people. There are so many jobs to care for people that are there that we don't have filled. I mean, that's just very exciting. And people can always just give money.
Yeah, we're a nonprofit.
Yes.
We'll always take some money. If you don't have, the time, because that's a lot of the issue that we have is people said, this is important work and I want to know, but I live in Bella Vista and you're all the way in Fayetteville.
Right.
I live in Fayetteville. It took me 52 minutes to get here. Like, I understand if you can't make that commute. But yes, resources, money, time, advocating for refugees, all of that is a part of this really good work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that a lot of nonprofits did not survive COVID. They didn't. I was part of a nonprofit that didn't survive. So it's very important that we provide volunteers and donations to our nonprofits. I heard a statistic, we have more nonprofits in Northwest Arkansas than they do in the rest of the country.
Wow.
We are a mecca for nonprofits.
Wow, that's awesome.
So if there's anything that people can do, they should do it.
Yeah.
They should do it to
Absolutely.
help. And it just makes our community better. It really does, to be touched by people from different cultures. So thank you for the work that you're doing. And I hope people are educated a little bit more and reach out via the website or to you personally if they would like more information. It's very important that we continue to bring diversity into our neighborhoods. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. That was so wonderful, and I would encourage people to donate, volunteer, whatever. Pick a nonprofit if that's not where you want to put your time. But it is so very important that we bring diversity, and we are good human beings. And after COVID, I think that's truly important. So I thank Mariah for joining me today, and I look forward to the next time we get to meet. So thank you so much, and goodbye.